Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, I left my home in Cleveland and kissed my wife goodbye and headed to the airport early in the morning and went to gates A, B, and C in the Cleveland airport and talked to TSA agents who are all working and working without pay. Then when I got to Washington, flew into National Airport, went straight to a building in Arlington where I talked to cafeteria workers. They're federal contract workers who serve food at our Smithsonian museums and other federal facilities. They don't work for the federal government. Their paychecks don't come from the federal government. They are contracted through a company and then paid by these companies. So they have lost their jobs during the Trump shutdown. They're not these workers making 12, 13, 14, some with some seniority make $15 an hour. They are a union. They make $2 or $3 more than the non-union comparable workers, but they're not getting paid. But unlike the 800,000 federal workers, some working without pay, some furloughed, unlike them, if history is the judge, they will not get paid those lost wages. So these are people making $12, $13, $14 an hour who have lost already 2 weeks of work because of the Trump shutdown. And they have no prospect, unless Congress acts, they have no prospect to get that back pay. And again, their wages are at that level. Then last night, to sort of cap the day, in my apartment here, I watched the President of the United States talk about his wall and dig in a little more. You know, Mr. President, I wish that Donald Trump would talk to the workers he's hurting with his shutdown. I wish he would go out as President Lincoln used to say to get his public opinion bath, would listen to these workers, that he would leave the White House or Mar-a-Lago where he spends most of his time and talk to these workers that I talked to yesterday, the TSA workers in Cleveland who are working without pay. And the anxiety levels are going up and up and up for these workers because this coming Saturday, they'll miss their first paycheck, and then beyond that too. And these food service workers. Last week, President Trump said his shutdown imagine this, he said, this is a billionaire president. His shutdown, the Trump shutdown, which he proudly as commander-in-chief said, I'm proud of this shutdown, that he went to shut down the government. He said, this shutdown has a higher purpose than next week's pay. Imagine that, a billionaire president living in this beautiful house paid for by taxpayers and having his estate in Mar-a-Lago, that he would say, this shutdown, this Trump shutdown has a higher purpose than next week's pay. I wonder if he'd tell that to TSA workers, the ones I met in Cleveland, including Aaron Bankston, who told me, if you're the only breadwinner in your family and you have your kids looking up at you, it's hard to tell them, we don't have anything to put food, we don't have any way to put food on the table. That's the hard part, Senator, is what he said. We just have to get us back working. We're working diligently over here. We're trying to make sure the flying public is safe. Or, Mr. President, tell the cafeteria workers that I talked with, tell them that there's a higher purpose than their week's pay. Because remember, it's not just federal employees feeling the pain, it's also these contractors. There are 800,000 federal employees. We can't get the number from the government yet. I'm not sure the administration wants to tell us these numbers. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of contract workers making $10, $12, $15, making a little more if they're lucky enough to have a union, but some making as little as $8 or $9 or $10 an hour. A lot of Americans don't realize that thousands of janitors and cafeteria workers and security guards are out of work because of the president. It's all kinds of federal employees. It's people that process tax returns to the IRS. It's people that are helping farmers adjust to the new farm bill that we passed proudly, Senator Roberts and Senator Stabenow and a bunch of us. It's about people wanting to get a mortgage and they can't get it approved with FHA because of this shutdown. It's people like that, but it's also people making $8 and $10 and $12 an hour. Unless we do something, these workers won't get the back pay that they should get because they're employed by private contractors. And they have no way, at $12 and $15 an hour without pay, they have no way of making up their lost hours and lost wages. I'm working with the relatively new Minnesota Senator, Senator Smith, on legislation to try to come up with a solution to get these workers back pay the way that workers who are actual federal employees get back pay. Because fundamentally, Mr. President, it comes down to respecting the dignity of work. And that means respecting the dignity of work that these workers make a decent wage with decent benefits. Missing one paycheck may not seem like a lot to the billionaire president in the multi-millionaire cabinet with their massive investment portfolio. I'll say that again. Missing one paycheck, one two-week paycheck, or two-week paychecks, or even if the president gets his way, 3 two-week paychecks may not seem like a lot to a billionaire president in a multi-millionaire cabinet with their massive investment portfolios, but it means a whole lot to those people. Missing a paycheck is a big, big deal that the President of the United States clearly either doesn't understand or doesn't care about. The president doesn't understand that working people can't just send a letter to creditors saying, hey, excuse me from paying rent this month or paying my mortgage or paying for my medications. You can't buy groceries or put gas in the car with an IOU. One of those cafeteria workers told me yesterday in Arlington, I have to pay rent, I have other bills, I have a college student in community college. In his second semester, he needs help with his books. She said, President Trump, I'm asking you, would you please open the government? Everyone is going through hardship. We really don't want this wall that you want. I'm guessing the President of the United States, the billionaire president, jetting back and forth between the White House and Mar-a-Lago in Florida, I'm guessing that he will never talk to, not just these workers I talked to in Virginia, or those TSA employees in Cleveland. I'm sure he won't talk to them, but I would hope he would talk to some people like them. He spends his time, it is a resort, but he doesn't see them. To him, they're invisible. But, Mr. President, Mitch McConnell could see them. He could right now, Mitch McConnell, Mr. President, his office is right down the hall on the right about 100 feet. I have shared on this floor before how lobbyists during the tax bill, when President Trump and the majority in the Senate and the majority in the House gave a $1.5 trillion tax cut, 70% of that tax cut to the richest 1%. People like themselves, the president, the cabinet, many members of this Senate, many members of the House, and I documented and showed, as I looked out this door and opened these doors, showed this is the place where the lobbyists go in and out of the majority leader's office, talking to them about this special interest legislation. So I ask right now, Senator McConnell could come out of this office, he could walk down this hall. I'd be happy to open the door with him if that's not contrary to Senate rules. I'd be happy to open the door with him, welcome him. He could right now vote to reopen the government and get this process moving and tell the President of the United States. He also could go to Virginia. He could also go to the airport in Louisville or in Cincinnati, and he could listen to their stories. But he doesn't seem to be listening either, because I'm guessing if he did, he might be a little more inclined to let us vote to get these workers back on the job. I'm calling on Senator McConnell to come out of that office, to walk down this hall, to come here and begin the process of opening the government. Let's talk for a minute about what the president said last night, Mr. President. The president continued his record of telling lie after lie after lie after lie, of misleading the people he's supposed to serve. Facts matter. So when you hear the president say we need a wall, remember, it's a fact that illegal border crossings are at historic lows. It's not fake news. My wife says if it's fake, it's not news. If it's news, it's not fake. These are facts. It's a fact that illegal border crossings are at historic lows. Another fact, apprehensions at the border are down nearly 80% since 2000. Another fact, the president's wall would do nothing to stop opioids coming into our communities. First, most illegal opioids are seized at legal ports of entry, not trafficked over some remote area of Texas. Fact, the shutdown makes it harder for Customs and Border Protection to do their jobs intercepting those opioids. Last year, another fact, we passed the Interdict Act, bipartisan bill. I worked with my colleague from Ohio, Senator Portman, on bipartisan bill, and Senator Markey from Massachusetts, to get Customs and Border Protection the screening devices they need to test for opioids. Why would we focus on the president's vanity project, building this wall, a promise he made. Remember his promise, I will build the wall and the Mexicans will pay for it. Well, he's now asking American taxpayers over time to pay 20 or 25 or $30 billion. But why would we focus on the president's vanity project instead of getting the agents the technology they need? Because we can do this with agents and technology and helicopters and all the things we need to do to protect the border, because that's what we want to do. We don't want this vanity project. We want to protect the border. Another fact, most of undocumented immigrants aren't committing crimes. In fact, 56% fewer criminal convictions for undocumented immigrants than native-born Texans. So a native-born Texan is more likely to commit a crime, percentage likely to commit a crime, than an undocumented person living in Texas. Keep in mind the facts of what this shutdown's cost the American people. 800,000 federal workers are going without a paycheck. 420,000 of them are on the job without pay. Thousands of contract workers, custodians, cafeteria workers, security guards, not only getting a paycheck, but they probably never will for this lost work. And here's another fact. The president and Senator McConnell could end the shutdown right now. The Senate passed a bill unanimously to fund the government in December. That's a fact. We passed it. It's a fact. It was unanimous. It's a fact. The House passed bills to fund the government last week. It's a fact. Senator McConnell, right now, could come out of that office, could walk down this hall. Senator McConnell could put those House bills on the floor right now. We could vote to end this shutdown. We could send them to the president's desk. And if the president's going to continue his vanity project and continue Trump shutdown, and he vetoes it, we have the ability to override it. The president doesn't tell us what to do. He seems to be telling the Republican majority what to do day after day. I applaud those who have stood up to him recently and said they want to open the government. But it's a fact also, this president said, I'm proud to shut down the government. This president, the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, the commander-in-chief, the top person in this country's government, said, I'm proud to shut down the government. Facts matter. The fact is, President Trump has once again, as he betrayed the General Motors workers in Lordstown, as he betrayed the General Motors, all the companies that supply building of the Chevy Cruze, as he betrayed those workers, he's betrayed these federal workers, he's betrayed these contract workers that are making $10 and $12 and $15 an hour, he's betrayed the American worker.